My name is Angie Edson. I am a certified yoga therapist, and I've been teaching yoga for over 18 years. I myself had a back injury in my L5-S1 and had to go through this whole learning process of what to do and what stretches and different moves were helpful for relieving back pain. And to be honest, it took some time for it to heal, so it's not a quick fix. But I'm going to show you 3 moves here, these easy moves that you can do at home. And I want you just to work at your own capacity, never push or force anything, especially when it's the first time trying something. Just do it part way, half percent, give it a half 50% effort, and take a few deep breaths and enjoy it. So let's do those poses now. So the first one is a core strengthening. Core plays a huge role in our back health. It helps to stabilize the low back. It sort of acts as a weight belt to protect and stabilize the low back. So the first one I'm going to show you is tiger pose. So if you come onto tabletop, hands and knees, and just spreading your fingers nice and wide, you're going to put your wrists right underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips, so your body's making like a box shape. And then what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze the low belly in a little bit towards the spine and take the right hand forward with the arm straight and the left leg back. Okay, so we're still hugging the low belly in and up towards the spine. As you continue to squeeze the belly in and up towards the spine, you're just going to inhale and raise the arm and the leg to wherever it's comfortable. You can flex that back foot. Spread the fingers, spread the toes. Doesn't matter if it's a low lift or maybe it's level with your shoulders and your hips. And then as you exhale, slowly lower and touch back down, keeping the arm and leg straight. And we're still squeezing the belly in here. So you do that a couple times with the breath, inhaling and lifting up just to wherever it's comfortable. Exhaling and gently touching back down. You can do it several times with breath if you want to, inhaling up and exhaling down. Squeezing and hugging the belly in the whole time. Or if you want to, this is my assistant, you can hold the pose if it feels like you have the strength. If you're holding the pose, remember to continue to breathe in and out nice and slow. Check that the hips are level, so the right hip and the left hip are at the same height. You're not lifting that left hip way up. So that creates a little bit more challenge. And you're flexing foot and spreading fingers and breathing here. Squeezing belly, squeezing belly, squeezing belly, and then gently release. What can feel nice to stretch the spine here is just a little child's pose in between. You can rest your head on your hands if you want to, and just take a couple of breaths here. Make sure your head is supported if the forehead doesn't touch the ground. I have my knees a little bit apart to make space for the belly. You can stack your fists and rest your forehead there if you need to, if the forehead doesn't touch all the way down. And then we'll go ahead and do the other side. So you're just squeezing the belly in, stretch the left arm, right leg back, squeezing and hugging the navel. Inhale and raise the arm and the leg just to wherever it's comfortable, hips are level. Exhale, squeezing the belly, lowering down, keeping the arm and leg straight. Squeezing the belly is the most important part here. So you're going to inhale and raise the arm and the leg. Exhale and gently touch back down. Feel free to do a couple more raises and lowers with the breath, or you can hold here and continue to breathe, but make sure that you're holding the integrity of the belly drawing in. Make sure hips are level. Make sure you're smiling. And then you can gently release and come back into child's pose. And just taking a couple of breaths there. So don't worry if your hips don't go all the way down to your heels. Just make sure your head is supported. Okay, now the next one I want to show you is a hip flexor stretch for stretching the psoas. So if you're going to be on your knees, I didn't say this before, but sometimes it's nice to put a little blanket fold underneath the knees just to kind of love up the knees a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and step one foot forward, maybe the right side you can start with. And you can also have blocks if you want to underneath the hands. And if you don't have blocks at home, just use books. Or you can even take the foot over to the outside, out to the right side, and put your hands on the inside. This is especially good if you feel like you can't breathe when you're here, if the belly's too squished. Just take the foot on the outside and bring the hands on the inside. And again, they could be palms flat. You could have hands on blocks. You could have elbows on the floor if you reach that far. So what I want you to check out here when you're in this lunge is let your hips shift as far forward towards the front as you can. And just check to see that the front knee is right over top of the front ankle. So for example, if you didn't step far enough, if you took a littler step and your knee is way forward, this is going to put a lot of pressure on the knee. It's going to torque the knee a little bit. So when you shift your hips all the way forward, check that that knee is over the ankle. Knees love that. So then what you're going to probably feel here is a little stretch in the front of your left thigh. That's your hip flexor. So we'll just take a couple of breaths in this. Remember to inhale fully, exhale fully. And you can even exhale out the mouth if you want to. It's a great way to release extra tension. You could hold for, 5 to 6 or up to 10 breaths on each side. But remember that the breath is the most important part. If you find that you're holding your breath or you're breathing really shallowly, then you're losing some of the benefits. So really breathe fully. Slow the breath down a little if you can. And even exhale out the mouth to release a little bit more. All right, good. Now we're going to change sides. So this is the second pose. I call it the hip flexor lunge, low lunge, whatever it is you want to. There's so many names for it. Equestrian pose, Anjaneyasana. So again, I've got the back toes curled under. You can point them back if you want, but the back toes curled under keeps that back leg aligned without thinking about it. Go ahead and shift your hips all the way forward. And just check. When your hips go all the way forward, is your front knee over your front ankle? And then we just hang out here and take a few nice deep breaths right into the front of this, the hip flexor. So a little note about why stretching your hips helps your back. Low back tension can sometimes be caused because the spine is being pulled out of alignment because of tightness in the hips. Now, if the hips are tight in the front here in the hip flexor from sitting a long time or even running a lot, we use this hip flexor. It can be contracted. And so when you stretch this hip flexor, it helps to free up the pelvis so that your pelvis can move freely. It's not pulling on your back and creating tension when there doesn't need to be any. So that's why stretching the hips in different ways is really, really helpful. So we stay here for about the same amount of time as we did the other side. And I tell you what, you can come back to hands and knees. Stretching these hip flexors is also really helpful for de-stressing. It helps to create a relaxation response, and it's great to do before bed. I recommend doing that one every day, minimum. Do the hip flexor stretch, especially if you sit a lot or you run a lot. All right, so the last guy, the third one, this is one of my favorites. You're going to come onto your back. This is one that's going to stretch the outer hip, and there's 6 deep muscles here in the hip that are called the deep 6 muscles. One of them is a piriformis. And sometimes when we have sciatica, it's a result of there not being enough space in these hip muscles for the sciatic nerve to pass through from the spine down through. It goes through beside the piriformis muscle and runs down the back of each leg. So this is a pose that can be really helpful for sciatica. If you suffer from sciatica and it's caused by an impingement in the piriformis muscle. So I'm going to give you 2 modifications. The first one is we just have knees bent. We place the right ankle on top of the left knee, and you're going to flex this foot. Pointing is opposite of flexing, so pull the toes back. Place that ankle on top of the knee. The first stage, if you're quite tight, is just to simply take your right hand on your right knee and press it away from your face a little bit. For those of us that are super tight in this area, that is going to give you enough of a sensation to breathe into. And again, you can use that inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And again, I recommend staying there for 6 to 8 breaths, especially this one if it's really tight. The second stage, if that doesn't give you enough sensation, if you're kind of like, nah, don't get much from it, you can put this left foot on a block or a book, right? So if you're here, the foot is a little bit lifted off the floor and it gives you a little bit more to work with. It's a little bit stronger. The final stage is, if this doesn't give you a stretch and the foot on the floor doesn't, the final stage is to lift that foot up. And believe me, you'll get it. You'll start to feel like, oh yeah, there it is. And again, those of us that do a lot of sitting, running, hiking, biking, that sort of stuff, get very tight in this outer hip. And that can be a huge source of tension in the low back as well, and can create pressure and can cause sciatica. So one way to play with this is just hold the knee, hold the heel, and just gently pull it in towards the chest. I'm showing this to you in stages, so you might be at stage 1, bus stop 1, with the foot on the floor, you might be foot on the block, you might be lifting and playing here, and the final step is to take the hands and interlace them either behind the thigh or on top of the shin. And just relaxing the shoulders here. So it's sometimes helpful to have a head on a pillow. If you feel like your head is cranking way back, you just put a pillow under your head. Take a couple of deep breaths. And then you can change sides. And you can hold that for as long as you like on each side. Generally, you can check in. So let's do the other side. Check in on this side, see how it feels. You could put your hand on the knee. If you need that second stage, foot on the book or the block. Or maybe you're bringing it up. Wherever you start to feel like you find an edge, and that you're going to breathe into that edge by taking long, deep inhales and exhales, and they could be exhales out the mouth if you want. That just helps us to release tension a little bit more readily. I recommend doing these 3 poses once a day, or even twice a day, or even 3 times a day until you start to feel relief. And of course, if any of these poses causes aggravation to your symptoms and then you start to feel worse because of it, that's a red flag that you're going to come out and leave that pose out. So I always really advocate listening to your body. Everybody's different. So use your internal wisdom, your body wisdom, make choices wisely. And thanks for joining me. I hope that those poses give you something to start working on. Just a little bit every day is all we need. All right, thanks for chilling with me, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.